Rabbi David, my first question is for you. So you have been vocal about being anti-Zionist, and many people think that's a contradiction with you being a Jewish rabbi. So can you please define both terms for us, and can you explain a little bit about how these two things are different from each other?
Okay. Thank you for the question. So just to be sure everyone hears the question, I think you're asking about a definition of anti-Zionism and a definition of anti-Semitism. And I think that's very important to be clear about what these things are and actually why they are not the same thing and why one is not the other, how they are different. And it's important because I can say they get conflated, like they're both the same thing, but a more honest way to say that, not that they get conflated, but there are powerful interests that intentionally try to confuse those two things, so that expressing anti-Zionism or expressing criticism or opposition to Israel gets labeled as anti-Semitism, and almost all the time it's not. So I'll try to offer my thoughts about that. So anti-Semitism, first of all, I want to be really clear with you, even though there are languages that are called Semitic languages. One of them is Hebrew, another one is Arabic, another one is Aramaic. Most of the languages in Ethiopia, like Amharic or Tigray, these are Semitic languages. And we could say, maybe, the people who speak those languages can be called Semitic people. The term anti-Semitism has nothing to do with that. It's a word that got invented in the late 1800s that means anti-Jewish. And it's a term that was invented in Germany, and for some reason, instead of saying anti-Jewish, they said anti-Semitic. Maybe from the point of view of Germans, in the late 1800s, the only Semitic people they knew maybe were Jews. I don't know. But don't confuse anti-Semitism with something about Semitic people. It's about Jewish people. That's what it means. And it's a kind of irrational hatred or antipathy to Jewish people. And it manifests in many different ways. It's been around for centuries and centuries. Some anti-Semitism, I can say, is religiously based, like, oh, we really disagree with that religion, right? I'll just say straight out, there's been a lot of anti-Semitism within Christian churches for centuries, more than 1,000 years. Almost all of the way back to the beginning of Christianity, there's been sometimes stronger, sometimes weaker anti-Semitism. Like, that's a kind of religious anti-Semitism. And then there's other kinds of anti-Semitism that have nothing to do with religion. But it's like, Jews are strangers. Jews don't belong here. We're having ideas like Jews control the banks, Jews control the media, Jews do this, Jews do that. So I'm just going to repeat, it's a kind of an, I would say, irrational hatred or antipathy against Jews, just because they're Jews. And that's anti-Semitism. Anti-Zionism is opposing Zionism. And then we have to ask the question, so what is Zionism? And there's different definitions for Zionism. Today, I think, effectively, without getting too academic and obscure about it, basically Zionism means supporting the state of Israel as it is, supporting what Israel's doing, and opposing that roughly, generally, we could say that's anti-Zionism. And many Jews are anti-Zionist. Zionism itself is a new thing. It didn't really exist until the very late 1890s, more into the 1900s. Most Jews opposed it. I can say when I was a kid growing up in the Jewish community in Baltimore, the synagogue that I went to was opposed to Zionism. That shouldn't shock anyone, because that was very normal for Jews to think, oh, we belong wherever we live. If I'm born in America, good. I should live in America. If I was born in Morocco, live in Morocco. If I want to move to another place, okay. We don't need our own country anywhere. If I want to move to Palestine and live there among Palestinians, okay. We don't need to establish our own country anywhere. And many prominent Jews argued against the idea that there should be a Jewish country and said that that was racist, that would only cause bigger problems, and so on. So anti-Zionism has been around as long as Zionism has. And I think today it's probably a growing trend among Jewish people. And there are surveys done recently of Jewish attitudes toward Israel that I can just say very roughly indicate maybe a third or so of the Jews in Canada or the US are opposed to what Israel's doing. They say Israel is an apartheid state, it's committing genocide. There's an actual poll done by a polling organization of Jews in the US, done in 2021, where 20% of the Jews under age 40 said that they believe Israel doesn't have a right to exist. It's 20% of the Jews under the age 40 think that Israel doesn't have a right to exist. So I would say that's anti-Zionism. So they're quite different, and large Zionist organizations try to persuade people that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and that is something we just need to oppose. I would say slap it down, argue against it, don't accept it. I hope that's an adequate answer.
That was very, very well said. Thank you so
I just want to add another element. I don't want to talk too much. You can stop me, but in the Jewish religion, ever since the very beginning, we have a special relationship with the land that in our tradition we call it Eretz Yisrael, which is very equivalent to Arabic, maybe Ard Israel, right? It's that land. That's what we call it. We have clear records that our ancestors lived there for hundreds of years. In the Torah, the very, very first thing that God said to Abraham is, go forth from your home to the place that I will show you. And Abraham went, and that place was Canaan. I'm making a point that a relationship with that land is inherent to our religion. A religious Jewish person prays every morning, afternoon, and evening. Part of the prayers is, take us back, bring us back to where we came from. Every meal that we eat, we say a prayer to thank God for the food. And then after we thank God for the food, we say thank you for the land, and take us back to the land that we came from. And even in our religion, there's this idea that one day, like when the world is perfected, yes, we'll go back to where we came from. But that's not Zionism. Zionism, I said before, it's like a political movement to create really an exclusive state dominated by Jews that's just absolutely racist, and that should be opposed and rejected. But I didn't want to leave out that important part that I think any Jewish person that has like a religious relationship in their life to Judaism also has a very special relationship to that land. But it doesn't mean to take it away from anyone else or to dominate other people or in any way to be unfair or unjust, and in our 10 Commandments we're told, do not steal, do not envy someone else's home. That's 10 Commandments. So you have to fit that in with having a relationship with that land, And again, that's quite different from Zionism.
Thank you so much for that addition. I think that really brought a deeper sense to what you were saying. And thank you. Our next question then, we'll move on to Sheikh Ayman. Sheikh, as a Palestinian religious figure and a community leader, can you share with us your personal experience over this last month?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Peace be upon all of you. And I wanted to thank our friends of other faith background for being here tonight, and also thank everyone who have contributed into making this event happening. And I want to thank my friend Rabbi David for being here tonight, and also at the same time want to thank the police officer who welcomed us, ushered us to the room. As you know, that I'm also a chaplain with the HBS, and I know how hard they work into making our life safe in this beautiful city. And the reason why I want to thank every one of us is because we are here tonight clearly showing to the children of Gaza, to the civilians who are in Gaza, that your lives matter. And we are not keeping a blind eye on what is happening. Since October 7, I have been really out of my ordinary life. And I was reflecting on what is happening to me and to my family. And I reflected on what I have been saying to my own clients when they come to me dealing with the stressful events and traumatic problems in their life, and tell them that you need to be aware of how dangerous and how difficult it is to go through stressful events. And then I woke up to the reality that I am indeed under so much stress. As a matter of the fact, from the first week, my own daughter, who's grade 9, was having difficulty to attend her classes. And her mom was telling me, you need to speak to Mayar because she is having difficult time. And when I met with her before leaving from home, I found that her eyes were red. And I said, Baba, what's going on? She said, I can't see what is on social media and on what's in the news and ignore it. That's basically it. So I can identify my feelings with so many members of the Muslim community, and you can also be mindful and aware also what happens and what's in the mind of many Palestinians, Canadian, who have relatives in Gaza or have relatives living in Palestine, and understand what is it like for us. I can say clearly that I have been losing sleep. I have my anxiety is literally have caused some physical pain to me. And despite of the, being a professional, helping people to cope with their stress, I haven't been able to deal with it myself. Just before coming here, I was just trying to update myself with the news and couldn't help it when Al Jazeera was showing the latest bombs or bombing that took place. And a kid in the background was crying for his father. You can clearly tell from the voice that, you know, an innocent child have most likely lost a father or mislocated from his own parents. And this is ongoing. It has been ongoing. And it's images like these, stories like this, that makes you feel that helpless sometimes, powerless, yes, makes you feel depressed, makes you feel that I wish there's something I can do. And I'm hoping, and I'm being clear about my agenda for tonight, I'm hoping that every one of us tonight will be walking away with practical set of things that we can do together to make sure that a life is saved from the civilians in Gaza. And we're able to make, if not a huge difference, at least take a few steps towards making their life much more easier and more humane. I don't think I can, you know, speak much because I'm assuming that many of us have been watching and seeing, despite of the fact, you know, of how media is unfortunately not playing a good role. And from the first week, I was very angry at media, and I said, you know, as a professional, I have moral standards, and I do have also, you know, the code of conduct for my profession, and I'm sure that the journalists have the same. But I'm just questioning and wondering what happened to their morals, what happened to their you know, code of conducts. You know, just before coming on Friday, the number of journalists who were killed during this, you know, atrocity was 136. Today they rise to 147. That speaks for how it is really difficult, you know, to deal with this conflict. It's getting to the point where those who are trying to portray the truth and show the whole world what is happening are being targeted. Their family members are being targeted. And we've seen a systematic process of targeting those who speak the truth and taking their own lives, like what happened to Aqila, the famous Palestinian journalist. So I'm hoping that an event like this will help us to share thoughts, to deal with our own feelings, and to translate our negative energy into somehow a positive energy would help us to walk out from here with a practical, you know, steps to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 things that I can do, that I feel that would make me able to save a life, you know, from the civilians of Gaza. I think that would be, you know, mainly from my side, if that would answer your question.
Thank you so much, Sheikh. I think very beautifully articulated, especially when you mentioned how your daughter felt. I think a lot of us in this very room felt those same ways when we saw what has been going on. And your words are very respectful. Thank you.
And if I may add, I have been going around using my limited abilities and my whatever tools I have, and meeting with different groups, youth, high school youth groups, university students, adults even, and sit with them and do this, you know, practical, you know, therapeutic session for them to be able to deal with their own thoughts and feelings, which is something, by the way, we have adopted at Sick Kids to do for the employees. Yeah, thank you so much.
Just before we go on with David Rabbi's next question, I did want to mention that if you are submitting questions through the QR code, please do clarify which speaker you are directing the question towards, just so that it's easier for us and you do end up with the perspective that you were aiming for. Thank you. Rabbi, in your view, why have we seen Canada in such a strident, one-sided view of the events in Palestine and Israel? And why is it still difficult for people to recognize the roots of violence as you've addressed them in your earlier remarks?
Tough question, I guess.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Did everybody hear the question? I should leave it. Yeah, I'm seeing nodding. Anybody not hear it? Repeat the question. Okay, that's so. question is something like, in my view, why has Canada taken such a strident, one-sided approach to this, I think you mean this current onslaught attack by Israel? I'll expand that and say, oh, ever since 1948, Canada has taken a very strident, one-sided point of view, and the question I was asked is why? And then there was the second part. What was the second part? Or is that really the question?
Yeah, I think the second part kind of delves into why you feel people are still willfully blind to the roots of this violence and this crisis that we are seeing.
So why are so many people being willfully blind? I don't want to insult blind people by saying that. Some people can't see with their eyes, other people can't see with their hearts and with their minds. Mm-hmm. Why? So I'll try to address that. But actually, I want to say something like what my friend the Sheikh said in the beginning, just to thank you all for being here. You know, everyone who came tonight, and especially thank you organizers. And I really feel thank you for inviting me. I'm actually here representing Independent Jewish Voices, which is an organization of more than 1,000 Jewish people across Canada. We have chapters all the way from Halifax to Victoria. We have a chapter in Hamilton, and it's growing. Like, people have contacted us this week and want to get involved with us. And I think it's so important for us, especially, to talk with each other, do our best to understand each other, and really, you know, work together, engage together, support each other, because we're all working for the same thing, and to, like, kind of, in our minds and in our hearts, include each other in that. And when I started learning about Islam maybe 15 years ago, I was very pleased to hear a verse or an ayah from the Holy Quran, which impressed me so much. And I'm going to ask the Sheikh to recite it, and then I'll just translate it in my way and say why that applies to tonight.
Thank you. وَإِذْ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. I'll give brief translation in English, and then you do the explanation. The mighty said that we created you into tribes and nations for the purpose of getting to know each other. The best among you in the scale of God the Mighty are those who are most conscious of their own moral values. Okay.
I think it's kind of a rhetorical question. Why did the Creator make humans with so many different languages and nationalities and tribes? You know, why not just make generic humans? And the answer, I understand in the Holy Quran, is so that we get to know each other and kind of overcome the divisions and the separations and recognize actually that we're all one, with just maybe different flavors and different colors and things like that. And that's part of what humans need to do in this world. And I'm citing that, I'm talking about that here tonight because I think that's what we are doing here tonight. You know, you could have just invited a sheikh to talk about it, but you also invited a rabbi. Mm-hmm. So we are manifesting or fulfilling that ideal that's in the Holy Quran, you know, by doing this together. And just I wanted to say all those words of you know, acknowledgement and gratitude before answering the question, which I already forgot what it was. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Why has Canada taken such a strident and one-sided approach to all this? And I'll speak for myself. I just will preface this by saying I've been involved with this issue for more than 50 years. I first got involved when I was a student at university in 1970 and 71, and I've been intensely involved ever since then. And I think largely there are very, very influential Zionist organizations that are very well funded and exercise their influence in a very effective way. And no one else is trying to exercise that influence with the same level of resources and efficacy. I want to be more explicit. In Canada, there's an organization, the name of which is the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs. It's abbreviated CIJA and usually referred to as CIJA. And it portrays itself as being the organization of Canadian Jewry. It is the organization of Jews in Canada. It speaks for the Jews in Canada. It unites the Jews in Canada, right? Essentially, it is the Jews in Canada. But if you listen to the name that it chose for itself, it's the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs. And that really indicates its priorities. And it has a branch in every city across Canada. The branch is not called that. The branch here in Hamilton is called the Hamilton Jewish Federation. And the Hamilton Jewish Federation historically was kind of an umbrella group to do fundraising and to support things like synagogues, Jewish schools, Jewish old age home like the Shalom Village not far from here. There's a little Jewish agency for people with psychological and emotional needs for support. There's a kosher food bank for people that just don't have enough to provide food for themselves, but they need kosher food. You know, Jewish summer camp for children. All these things are very important and very good, and we Jews do that for ourselves. Bigger cities might have a Jewish hospital, right? A Jewish cemetery, you know, many things that we Jews do for ourselves. And I would roughly say maybe for 100 years or more, the Jewish Federation in Hamilton did all those things. And not very long ago, I know, since I moved to Canada, 1995, that was explicitly, directly taken over by this thing that was created that's called CIJA. And that was created by a few very wealthy people, billionaires. And they kind of went to the different Jewish community organizations and they said, oh, you're really struggling with your finances, aren't you? Let us take care of that problem. We have the resources. We can manage this. And we'll put it all together. And they created the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs. And they also have a budget that's in the tens of millions of dollars. Across Canada, they have dozens of professionals on their staff who are PR people or communications people, or another word for it would be basically propagandists. They, you know, if you're a lobbyist in Ottawa or in Queen's Park, you have to register, and when you visit someone in government, you have to report that. CIJA and the Zionist lobby is the largest, most active lobby in Canada. And what that means is they visit government officials more than mining companies, forestry companies, oil and gas companies, real estate developers, pharmaceuticals, agricultural interests. I'll just repeat this. I think you understand what I'm saying. The most active, biggest lobby in Canada is the Zionist lobby. So I'm answering your question. I think I'm answering it objectively. And I'll just add several other elements. I don't know if I'm telling you things you don't already know, or maybe you do already know, but besides what I just said, there are very, very large Christian organizations that have, I will say, a kind of a mystical belief, and my two Christian friends in the front row are nodding their heads a lot, that in order for Jesus to come back, the Jews have to be gathered in the land of Israel. So there are large Christian organizations. Stephen Harper was very involved with them, that are often called evangelical, and for their own reasons that have nothing to do with Jewish people, that I would say are actually very anti-Semitic reasons, they support everything about Israel. They want the Jews to go to Israel. And of course, when that happens, their belief is that the Jews who don't become Christians will be killed and go to hell forever, will suffer in hell forever. But first, we have to go back there. So I'm saying there's massive Zionist lobby that's very well resourced. And then on top of that, there's something that seems to me, it's like completely opposed to actual life of real live Jewish people who live here in Canada, right? It doesn't have our best interests at heart. It's not for us, but they are very, very, very powerful advocates for Canadian political and financial support for Israel because of their own kind of religious beliefs. And then I'll just add to that another thing, which I think is a factor. I think there's a lot of sympathy for Jews because of the history of anti-Semitism that people know about for centuries. It culminated in the Holocaust. Millions of Jews were intentionally murdered within living memory of people today. So there's sympathy, and there's a feeling that somehow, because of all this misery that has been imposed on Jews for centuries, today we should support the Jews. And then supporting the Jews gets translated into supporting the state of Israel. And of course, as I said before, that's not a proper equation. That's not logical. But if you asked me the question, it's kind of a long answer. I gave three aspects, and I think they're all important. And I'll just pick up on the Sheikh's question. What can we do about this? What actions can we take? I'm actually not going to go there, but at least knowing these things, I think, is really important, starting with that. And I think with each one of them, I'm saying there's a fallacy. They're not good reasons. They're not true. And at least we can push back and argue against them.
Thank you, Rabbi. That was very informative, and I think it's very eye-opening just how complex and multiple these layers are to this whole situation and to the history of it. So thank you so much for that input. I'm going to go back to you, Sheikh. I have a question for you.
Sure.
So some people see the engagement by Muslims around the world with the attacks on Palestinians as tied to the religious significance of Al-Aqsa Mosque or Jerusalem. How much of this is about religious symbols versus concern over justice, the loss of human life, and human suffering as a whole?
Yeah. I think I'm just going to rephrase the question, as maybe the people in the back did not get the chance to listen to it, or the audience will be watching this later on. She's asking whether this, the sympathy of the people over what happened over in the past month has been solely because of religious affiliation or feelings, or it is as a result of being concerned about human atrocities. Now, as my brother Rabbi David mentioned, that yes, indeed, if you go to the Quran, you will see that a big chunk of the Quran speaks about Moses, peace be upon him. And Bani Israel is frequently mentioned in the Quran more than any other nations. And the name of Moses, peace be upon him, mentioned in the Quran more than the Prophet, peace be upon him, Muhammad. But again, putting things into the right perspective and without getting into too many details, historical details, and get into a debate, yes, indeed, the land of Palestine, as my brother was mentioning, is a Canaani land, whereby Abraham from Iraq came seeking refuge in, and the ruler of the country at that time was a submitting person to the will of God, and gave an amnesty to Abraham, peace be upon him. And then after that, Abraham gave, had children, the 12 apostles, and then Israel, of one of the apostles, was living with his children, but then eventually they moved on to Egypt, and then after that coming back to Palestine, and the kingdom of David and Solomon, peace be upon all of them, which lasted about 75 to less than 80 years, which is something we hear a lot about in the discussion of the 8 years issue. And then eventually, this is a land from historically, ancient time, is known to be an Arabic land or Arab land or Canaani land. Now, we also need to also be mindful that Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, or the furthest mosque as translated to, has been the first qibla, the direction for our prayers. When we pray as Muslims, we normally face Mecca. But prior to that, for 2 years almost, the prayer was done towards Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, the furthest mosque. This is to add a weight to the furthest mosque. As a matter of the fact, we believe that the first place of worshiping on earth was established is Mecca by Adam, peace be upon him, as the first prophet of God the Mighty, maybe by the help of the Malaika, the angels. And the second place of worshiping is the furthest mosque, Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. So indeed, yes, there is a religious attachment in the hearts of Muslims globally. But also at the same time, what moved the Muslim community and the whole world, and as I said from the beginning, that what we have here, we have Muslims, we have our friends of other faith background or no faith background, because in the last demonstration that took place in Toronto, we had almost a representation from every ideology you can think of. So that's clearly an issue of human, feeling or human, recognition to our own values and principles. After all, we're all come from one couple, Adam and Eve, peace be upon them, because they were the first to establish life on earth. And then after that, the progenies, the children come over, and then we divided ourselves and all the details. But at the bottom line, we're human being. We share this planet that is called the Earth together, and we should be mindful of how we need to live in peace and harmony, and be respectful to each other, and be respectful to the rights of people to be able to live with integrity. And that's what moved the masses around, not only in Canada, around the globe. So yes, indeed, it is a humanitarian or a call for humans, wake up of the conscience. And this is what I said from the first week to our own politicians. Where's your conscience? I'm addressing you as a human being, as a father or as a mother. At the end of the day, when you sit with your children at the dinner table, and you enjoy a meal with your children, and you tuck them, after that to bed. How have you been, ignoring what is happening to the civilians in Gaza? I personally have been literally struggling to get sleep overnight. My wife was telling me, you gotta take it easy on yourself. My children were telling me, pay attention to us, we're here around you. And I said, yes, indeed. I fake the smile in front of their faces. I try to be as attentive to their needs as possible. But at the end, when I am by myself, when they go to bed, I take my moments of cry and reflection and wondering, where's the whole world? Where's, and I said it, multiple times. I'm addressing the leadership of the international community. I'm not addressing the international community because the international community has been massively acting and angry and demonstrating and doing whatever they can to do something to stop this atrocity. But for the leadership of the for the leadership of the international community, where's your conscience? Where are your moral values? What are your principles? What are the codes of conduct for your position that you have taken upon yourself to represent your own people? That's what we need to waken up in their minds. I don't want to be hijacking more. I have to add more to what my brother was saying about what we can do, but I'll leave it to the QA session.
Thank you so much.
I
think it definitely is very emotionally trying when we see all these atrocities happening and all these lives being lost, and sometimes around us that sorrow is not reflected. It can be very hard to live through in times like this. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome, sister. Thank you.
I have a question now that I want to turn to both of you, and I'd like to hear both of your perspectives on it.
Yeah.
And that is regarding what you believe the role of faith, and you as people of faith as well, have in taking us out of this present crisis.
You can start. You've been taking the leadership. Go ahead.
It's been pushed on me.
Yes.
The question is, what does faith contribute to our perspective and our ability to deal with what's going on, right? So I think there's a number of things we can say that I'll just say a few, maybe not in perfect order, but I think they're all important. One thing is, just even implying the word faith, is to believe that we can overcome these problems and not to be hopeless, not to be paralyzed, not to get stuck in a kind of a short-term view and see what's happening right now and we can't think beyond that, but really to have faith that all of us humans are put into this world to live together with each other, even as that verse from the Quran says, to know each other and really to fulfill our purpose in this world. So again, to have faith in that, to believe in it, and to live into it. That, for me, is probably the biggest thing that I get from faith. My faith, certainly the Jewish faith, says that what we do is what's most important. Not what we believe or what we think, but how we act. And seriously, a person who rejects religion and is a complete atheist, but acts in a just and right way in this world, is really, a highly valuable person to be praised and to be admired. And somebody could have a lot of faith and not do anything, and that's not really worth very much at all. What I just said to you is a very, very Jewish, religious attitude about this. That what we do is what counts, not what we believe in our faith. So that's a pointer for me, that my religion demands of me that I must be involved. Mm-hmm. I'll take a little digression, and really from a rabbinic teaching. If you read the Torah, you see all these things that God tells us to do. I could just mention some you probably know. Honor your mother and your father. Keep the Sabbath day. Have honest weights and balances when you're doing business. All these many, 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 many things. A long time ago, some rabbis counted them up, and they found there's 613 commandments. out of those 613 commandments, there's 2 of them in the Torah that in Hebrew use the word radof. So one of them is tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. And tzedek is like the Arabic word, maybe sadaqah. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof means justice, justice you shall pursue, pursue, run after it, chase after it. And the other one of the 613 that uses that word is bakesh shalom v'radfehu. Seek shalom, seek peace, and pursue it. And the rabbis centuries ago said, all the commandments in the Torah, oh, you do them when the opportunity arises. I can say like, oh, if I have a mother, honor my mother, right? If I'm going to eat something, eat in a proper way. You know what I mean? When the week goes by and the Sabbath comes, okay, keep the Sabbath. But there's 2 things that we're commanded to get up out of our place of rest and comfort and pursue them. And those 2 things are tzedek, which is justice, and shalom, which is peace. So that's religious teaching from me. And as a person of my particular formulation of faith, you know, the package that I got my faith in, that pushes me to do those things. I'll leave it right there.
That's a good end to it. Thank you.
Very
Yes.
educational, especially. It's so interesting now, especially I'm excited to hear what the Sheikh has to say, because between religions there is such an importance of peace, and I think it's really beautiful how we see that reflected, and I'm sure what Sheikh Ayman will now go forward to say.
Yeah, indeed, definitely, you know, what my brother was saying, that, you know, the core of all the faith is about justice, about principles, about applying this in your life. And I think he clearly said, differentiated between what's Judaism and what's Zionism, and how I don't want to be, you know, saying things, but, you know, how Zionism have hijacked Judaism into their own agenda. I'm not an expert in this. I'm not, you know, going to be putting words or saying things. That's not my area of expertise, but I believe firmly that the people of all faith or non-faith have in the core of their mind and heart moral principles that call upon them to be conscious about other human being in their lives. And you know, clearly from my experience as a chaplain for the past 27 years, I have dealt with different faith leaderships and see how awesome, how humane, how sensitive, how caring, how lovely they are when it comes to addressing issues that pertaining to human lives. And I think we need to deploy these meanings and values into conveying message to our own congregations and say to them, let us to work together and you know, and utilize our beliefs and values in a positive way that would help us to make a change. If we start from the grassroots, and this is what I'm seeing right now, we're seeing, you know, change from the bottom to the top. We always look to the leadership and we always look to the top. Now the leadership is losing ground. Now the masses in the ground is shaking, is questioning, is inquiring, is learning, is getting in touch with their own faith. Last vigil we had in this beautiful city was a representation of my brother and myself and a Christian Palestinian, and I'm sure there were even, you know, other faith backgrounds or non-faith background people who have attended. And we did the same thing in the hospital where we had, you know, a humane event where we're, you know, getting together to show support and solidarity in the wake of all these chaotic things that are happening around us. And I'm sure with every faith teaching, there is something to heal the heart. And this is my area of expertise. My brother David is laughing because he knows what I'm talking about, the chaplain of McMaster Campus. Yes, indeed, we do have the answer for these, you know, issues. And let people come to us. Let us help them to heal. Let us help them to translate these negative feelings and emotions and thoughts into positive energy that would help them to create a better future for ourselves and our children. It's what motivates these people to go out on a weekend, and what have motivated you to come here tonight, knowing that you could be spending time with your children, or watching your own shows on TV, or doing your own homework. But you decided to come here because you care. And that's what faith is all about. We do have answer to all these things, and we can utilize faith to help us be able to heal and be positive into creating positivity around us and everywhere we go. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shay. Those are very beautiful words, and I hope that everyone in this room could benefit from the peace and comfort you just brought. And I think you're truly right, just doing what we can.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both for that.
It's my pleasure.
Just one last question before we head into our Q&A from
Yeah.
the audience. I wanted to ask both of you, what are you personally hoping to get out of this session today?
You want to start?
Do it.
Sure, you're the man.
What am I personally hoping to get out of this session today? So quite honestly, I want to hear what the Sheikh has to say.
Thank you.
I want to learn from him.
Appreciate it.
I've been blessed and fortunate to learn from many different Sheikhs in my life, and I appreciate that very much. And another thing, if I'm going to be honest, is I want to tell you some things that I think and that I know, and I want to impart some of that to you. And I'm also very interested in what you have to say, your questions. Maybe I'll even meet some of you and talk with you and have some connection into the future. That's what I'm hoping for my personal self.
Thank you, David. Thanks. As for what I am hoping to come up with tonight, and I'm hoping you will be walking away with tonight, is an action plan. I want to see every one of us walking with a clear action plan, a positive action plan. As I said again, helplessness, powerlessness, feeling, down, feeling, whatever it is not gonna help us. It's gonna destroy us. We don't want this to creep into our heart. We don't want fear to creep to our hearts. We want to be liberated. We want to be able to speak the truth. We want to be able to stand for the truth, and we want to see the truth being implemented. I know many of you who are here tonight are afraid or concerned. Well, what if I attended this event? Is someone gonna be questioning me later on? I've been, this question comes to my mind. Is there a possibility for me to lose my job? And I said it to so many people. They can intimidate, 10 people, a couple of hundred people, but they cannot intimidate thousands. The first week, when my sister Sarah Jama, my own MPP, because her office is right behind my mosque, when she was intimidated by our premier, I said to him, shame on you. I said it clearly and loudly, shame on you for intimidating my sister. Shame on you for intimidating a person who have worked very hard and struggled throughout her life despite of her disability to prove to everyone that no matter what you have in your life, you're able to be a person of influence. And you are trying to use your own power and authority to intimidate her and stop her from speaking the truth. Shame on you. You should not do that. And I'm very grateful to her. She's going to be coming to my mosque on Friday. Cool. And I said to her, I want to invite you to my mosque so you could, I want to thank you in front of everyone and say, this is a woman who deserves our respect. We need to stand behind her. We need to show her the support so she can continue to say and speak the truth. Yes, in the previous sessions I have, done with, as I said, high school population, university populations and adult population, as I said to them, up front, beside the questions that you will be bringing forward, I want to hear from you, what are the practical things that we can do to change the situation we're in? I can tell you a list of 6 things that I have come in the past, but I want to hear them from you. And I wanted to prove to you that you have the ability and power, the intelligence, the intellect. All of you are, open-minded, intellectual individuals who are in one of the most beautiful and powerful institutions in the world. I can say it clearly. You have abilities and powers and opportunities to do a lot. Think positive, and let's come up with list of things that we will be, posting on the website for what could be done. As I said, I'm not going to tell you what you need to do, but bring forward with your questions, your suggestions and recommendations.
Again, just to thank you so much to both of you. Those were very good takeaways. And yes, Rabbi, please go ahead.
While we're on the topic of Sarah Jama, I want to just step out of my rabbi role and just tell you there's going to be a large meeting on Thursday evening to support Sarah Jama as an independent MPP and to talk among ourselves about how we can build a meaningful political support structure for her. And I'm just going to take the liberty of announcing where that is. Get out your pen and your paper. So that's going to begin at 6:30 at 51 Adair Avenue South. And maybe I'll say it again, and actually I'd be happy to give you my contact information if you want to, if you don't quite catch it right now, you can write to me or call me and I'll tell you. But it starts at 6:30 on Thursday, November 9th at 51 Adair Avenue South. And if you search around, you might be able to find something about it online, or just look me up. I have a unique name, David Mivaser. Find me, write to me, and I'll tell you about it. I'll even send you the link to RSVP, and also it's going to be on Zoom. And it is seriously people, especially in Hamilton Center, wanting to support Sarah Jama as a now independent MPP.
Thank you. That is positive action. Exactly. This is for step number 1.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
I think you're definitely so right, and thank you so much, Rabbi, for including that. I urge you all to please look into it, and that is just another step we can take in, as the Sheikh said, positive actions.
Yeah.
So now...
I want to add something else. On Sunday night, I was a speaker at a rally in front of City Hall. There's maybe 1,000 people there. And just look around. There's 1,000 people from Hamilton. Were there any city council members? Was the mayor there? Did any MPs come? There was one elected official, one person, and that's Sarah Jama. I don't know where everybody else was, but they didn't think it was worth their while to show up at something so important where like 1,000 people or more from Hamilton were there. And that actually goes back to the question you asked, like, why does Canada have this very strident, one-sided point of view? Like, where were all the rest of our elected public officials besides Sarah Jama? So I feel very emphatic about supporting her, keeping her in office. And it's actually not about her so much as a person, it's what she represents. It's the politics that she's really the champion of, and that, she makes it possible. So just anybody that agrees with that, see what you can do to support her and support those politics.
Yep.
Thank you again, Rabbi.